Good morning. We welcome Secretary Joseph Emilio Abaya, Jun, and the DOTC families, undersecretaries. Should we still put everyone's names into the record or consider it already reflected in the record? Mahaba. Basahin nyo lahat. Oh, sige, basahin nyo. Saving my voice. Okay.
Good morning. We would like to acknowledge the presence of Secretary Abaya, Yusek Rene Limcauco, Yusek Catherine Gonzalez, Yusek Edwin Lopez, Asek Alfonso Tan of the LTO, Chairman Winston Guinness, LTFRB, Admiral Rodolfo I. Sorena of the Philippine Coast Guard, Executive Director Carmelo Arcilla of the Civil Aeronautics Board, Administrator Maximo Mejia Jr. of Marina, Chairman Melchor Cayabia of the Office of Transportation Cooperatives, Executive Director Edmundo Reyes Jr. of the Toll Regulatory Board, Commodore Roland Recomono, Office of the Transportation Security, General Manager Roman Venape of the Metro Rail Transit, MRT3, Administrator Honorito Chaneco, Light Rail Transit, LRTA, General Manager Joseph Alan Dilay of the Philippine National Railways, Mr. Conrado Tolentino of the North Rail, Director General William Hotchkiss III, Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, Major General Jose Angel Honrado of the Manila International Airport Authority, General Manager Nigel Paul Villarete of the Mactan Cebu International Airport Authority, Attorney Emigdio Tanwatco, Clark International Airport Authority, General Manager Juan Santa Ana of the Philippine Ports Authority, Commodore Gilbert Rueras of the Philippine Aerospace Development Corporation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May we proceed with the presentation? Yes, I'll ask my questions in between if you don't mind, but I'll try as much as possible for you to finish your presentation and then I ask the questions. But, Pesat, you proceed, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a privilege for the DOTC family to present our budget to our Chairman of the Finance Committee, and I'll call on Undersecretary Lim Cauco to make our presentation.
Thank you, Secretary Abaya. Madam Chair, I'm going to be presenting an overview of the DOTC 2016 proposed budget. So can we have the first slide, please? So in front of you, Madam Chair, is the 2016 budget submitted by the President to Congress for DOTC, excluding the corporations. It amounts to 45,771,274,000. It's 17% less than our 2015 budget of 54 billion. The major reason for the decrease is the reduction in the budget for locally funded projects of about 8 billion and foreign assisted projects of 1.5 billion. The total 2016 budget is allocated proportionately 66% to projects, 30% to programs, and 4% to special accounts. Next slide, please. Noteworthy is that although our budget decreased by 9 billion, there was an increase in the operating budgets of MRT3, the DOTC CAR, the LTO, the LTFRB, the Civil Aeronautics Board, Marina, OTC, and the OTS Fund, and the PCG. Most of the increases were in the single-digit level, except for the CAB, Marina, and OTC, which were 13%, 12%, and 18% respectively. Most of the increases are attributed to higher allocation for equipment in 2016, except for PCG's increase, which is attributed to the increase in personnel services for filling up positions and the creation of 914 uniformed personnel positions. and Marina's increase, which covers PS and MOOE. MRT3's increase for wages of contractual personnel was increased by approximately 9 million pesos, representing a budget for additional 30 train drivers for 2016 in view of the increase in the rolling stock of MRT3. The OSEC budget also decreased in 2016 due to a lower budget for line item feasibility studies, including pre-FS and development research project management services. Also, a major item in the OSEC program's budget is a provision for real property taxes for PNR amounting to 500 million, which represents its payables to the local government of Manila. Total projects for 2016 amount to 29.9 billion pesos. Aviation projects comprise 30% of this budget, the bulk of which is allocated to Clark International, the new Clark International Terminal, Kamsur Naga Airport, and our regional airports PPP project. Railways accounted for 27%, the bulk of which was allocated to our LRT2 West Extension project and our North-South Malolos to Bicol Railway project phases 1 and 2. Yes, sir. Second slide. Ports and lighthouses amounted to 4%. Roads and bridges, 6%. And classified under governance is 33%. The bulk of which is the subsidy for Mastra MRT3.
I think what we should advise just all agencies to learn to communicate clearly and to when you have your overhead projectors so that it's bold, maintindihan. So that a hard copy na hindi ko makita eh. Ganyan ang problema lahat ng ahensya, hindi maliwanag ang kanilang mga yun. Sige, thank you.
We apologize, Madam Chair, and
Proceed.
we will rectify our
You're not the
presentation.
only one. It's people have to learn how to communicate in visuals and in the written, verbal, visual form. Yes. Parang, it's not just your department, almost all. It was Senator Villar or someone else who said, parang, even SP who said, parang ayaw nilang maintindihan natin eh, ganon. It wasn't from me, it was from another senator, remember? Yun ang sinasabi, parang gusto yata nilang hindi natin maintindihan. We're here to communicate so that it could be more efficient and faster. O, SP, ikaw yata nagsabi nun eh. Kaya ba ng mata mo yun? Kaya nga eh. Sabi ko parang ayaw yata lang maintindihan natin, di ba? Ikaw nagsabi nun.
Baka akala nyo, mga 18 years old.
Oo. Hindi ko makita eh. Sige. Thank you. We recognize the Senate President. Please proceed.
Okay, we'll go to I think the next slide should be larger. Okay. The next slide, Madam Chair, is our revenue slide. So as to revenues collection, excluding government corporations, our actual income in 2014 was 21.6 billion pesos, which was 12% higher than our target of 19.2 billion. The greatest contributor to this 12% increase was LTO and TRB. Our projected revenue target for 2016 was therefore increased to 22,730 million pesos. Slide 4, please. The total DOTC budget from all sources is 49 billion pesos, 88% of which is new appropriations. And the slide will show the breakdown. Next slide, please. So to give a general overview, Madam Chair, of the projects, the infrastructure projects of the department, and how the infrastructure projects support the overall goals. We have a few slides to show. Next slide. So the total projects, as we said, was around 30 billion, and it's divided as 9 billion to airports, aviation, 8 billion to railways, 1.2 billion to ports and lighthouses, 1.8 billion to roads and bridges, and 9 billion to governance. Next slide. For aviation, Madam, we have allotted a large portion in order to support the growing air traffic and growing airline industry of the Philippines, and in order to support the Department of Tourism's goal of 10 million tourists. So our 2016 budget, we've allocated or programmed 6.74 billion. Next slide. So a lot is to expand and improve airports. We primarily are focusing on airports with commercial flight operations, airports which the airlines requested to be developed, and airports which the Department of Tourism has identified in accordance with their National Tourism Development Plan. Next slide. So in front of you, Madam Chair, are the airports which we will be improving, expanding, and modernizing in order to support the Department of Tourism's National Development Tourism Plan.
The Busuanga Airport is not here. It's been talked about since 1998. It's not included.
We have it in our 2015 budget, Madam Chair.
2015. So it's done by this year. There's no
No.
allocation. These are the additional airports.
Yes.
I see.
So the Busuanga is in our 2015 budget, and we're looking at implementing that in 2016.
So you have 3 in Palawan, San Vicente, Taytay, and then Busuanga,
Yes.
apart from Puerto.
And Puerto. So 4.
You don't have the San Jose Antique Airport, which is an existing airport. Ayan ka na naman. Bakit? Bakit sa kambing? Kung ganyan. The Antique Airport is existing. It just
Yes.
needs upgrading.
We
I
have,
believe. Yes.
ma'am, in 2014. In 2014, we have one. We had a budget for that.
So it's operational,
Yes.
and it's does not need any form of rehabilitation to take out the weeds.
Well, just an input, Madam Chair. I just heard from the Director General of CAAP. There's currently no traffic there. There's no commercial flights.
commercial flight.
And basically commercial flights is a business decision of the airlines, Madam Chair.
Correct. If we're able to convince airlines to fly there, is the airport capable of receiving what kind of aircraft?
Turboprop.
Just so that I can help the province. Just for transparency, it's my home province. It's a neighboring poor province of Iloilo of the Senate President. But I asked the Senate President to help Antique as much as he helped Iloilo. We need your intervention, Mr. President, so that the whole Panay can be progressive. Just like we have presidentiable from Capiz. We have a Senate President from Iloilo. We have a Chairman of the Finance Committee from Antique. We have congressmen from Aklan, etc. Antique lags behind. Help this province, which was Yolanda hit, which had the least assistance from the national government insofar as the towns that were hit by Yolanda. There's still unelectrified sitios within the province. We have, yes, an airport, but there's no, as clearly said, investors or business decisions to fly there. But it's a beautiful province, and the people continue to be poor. So I think, and I encourage you to kindly help make sure the airport is ready to receive flights, and if it needs either expansion or, he will kid me again. He said what it needs is a lawnmower to take out the weeds. The Senate President always says that in jest, but not anymore.
I never
now.
said that.
Never.
No,
Okay.
I said you need livelihood projects there so that the tall grass can be eaten by the goats.
Oh, that's worse. No, he always just.
No. Let me
off the record.
seriously
I'm sure,
though.
seriously, okay.
Seriously, there were flights there before, Madam Chair, if you recall, and really, there has just got to be traffic, and because these are privately run companies, we cannot force them to go to Antique if there's no passenger volume, which will.
That was many years ago, Mr. President. I
Yeah.
think it was more than 5 or 10 years ago. But now we already have Robinsons, we have Jollibee,
I'm sure that-
and there's tourism already now. So
Yes,
things have
yes.
changed from the time that there were flights and they cut flights. I know it's a private business decision. We'll take care of that, and we will encourage human traffic to do
we
that.
should,
We just want to make sure whether the airport is good enough to receive aircraft.
I think they have received aircrafts before, right?
It is ready to receive a turbo propeller aircraft, Madam Chair.
Similar to those that land in Caticlan Airport.
Yes.
Yes,
Is the
Madam Chair.
capability of the San Jose Airport the same as Caticlan presently?
Caticlan is continuously expanding. They're eventually
But
expanding
just the
to
present.
No, the present Caticlan.
Yes.
Or, so,
Yes, the same, Your Honor.
Similar to Busuanga and to Caticlan and
Yes.
San Jose. So
Yes.
the only reason that there is none is because perhaps you are correct, Mr. President, there's just no traffic. But if because of robust tourism now, it doesn't have to be every day. It doesn't have to be 3 times a day like Iloilo. It can be twice a week, 3 times a week, right?
In fact, before it was twice a week, if I recall, Madam Chair. But really, because I helped them in trying to convince the airlines to serve Antique. One of the things they told me, there's no traffic. Number 2, they have always told me that the proximity of Iloilo and the good road network, the good roads, works against another. Is another factor which would discourage the airlines from going there. In fact, Madam Chair, I tried to. I said, can we not have an Iloilo-Boracay flight? They said no, because, again, the proximity of the 2 airports would discourage passengers from taking separate flights. The same condition. You just have to develop the volume in Antique to justify commercial flights.
I realize that. I simply wanted to know whether the facilities were comparable to other airports and whether it could receive aircraft. Now we tell the private sector to see if it's feasible to have twice-a-week flights, yes. So the Busuanga, we proceed now, thank you, Mr. President, we proceed now to the Busuanga Airport. Since 1998 and even before my term, an international airport in Busuanga was always talked about. Is that ever in your plan, or it will always remain just that kind of airport like Caticlan?
Well, we had approval already from the NEDA board, Madam Chair, to convert it to a jet international airport. It's going to cost about 4.6 billion pesos. So we're currently doing the detailed engineering.
So it's been
tuloy.
approved?
Yes.
And it will be an international airport? When you say
Yes.
jet international airport, what does that mean?
A320. Airbus A320.
Airbus. Oh, I see. How slow government is, no? 1998 pinag-uusapan na ito. Ganun talaga ang planning, no? Matagal. When will we see that happening?
So the construction is 2.5 to 3 years, Madam Chair.
And you have budgeted that for 2015 and 2016?
Yes. 2015, we have the budget which will be spent on 2016. Then another one we perceive in 2017 to complete.
How about the Legazpi Airport? So I'm going, as you notice, I'm going from region to region. I'm looking at areas which are, in my mind, underserved when I speak about Baswanga, because just so that, I've been going around that area since I was in my teen years, and that was some time ago. I'm the age of your secretary. So I've seen when it didn't have light, didn't have roads, didn't have an airport. So I crisscrossed Palawan even in the 70s. So I'm asking about Antique because it's my home province. I ask about Bicol because it's a typhoon visits it every year, but it has great potential for tourism with very dynamic LGUs in some areas. I know that the Legazpi Airport was being either rehabilitated or improved.
I think that the decision, Madam Chair, is really to move the airport to Daraga. That will be then the main airport for the Bicol region.
I thought you had, so the Legazpi Airport will be closed and move it to Daraga? What is it? I thought you had bid it out already and it was supposed to be constructed.
The Daraga Airport has 2 remaining phases. After this, then it's completely done and should be opened, and eventually Legazpi Airport will be closed.
And that is already in the works? Is it? It's not in the list of airports as well?
Yes, Madam Chair.
This Bicol International Airport refers to the Daraga Airport. And
Yes,
there
Your Honor.
is no expansion of the Legazpi Airport.
No, ma'am. The decision really is to move because Daraga is a much better site and likewise away from the volcano. So
Okay.
it would be better, more efficiently operated.
What will the present airport be?
Well, when we
You'll
close it
convert-
down, then either a decision for another use, it remains CAP property, then we'll figure out from there, ma'am.
Do a business center. That's what we did with our.
You mentioned about CAAP, yes. Could we, you don't have to list it now if you don't have it. Could you kindly give the committee a list of CAAP properties all over the country? I would assume that that would be titled to DOTC, no? These are not DNR lands, these are not lands of other government agencies, but these are CAAP properties. Are they being utilized, maximized in terms of its utilization?
We will submit, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
The CAP DG is here. Probably he could give his comments as well.
Your Honor, CAAP owns and operates 81 airports all over the country. This does not include Naiya, Clark, Mactan, Subic, and San Fernando, La Union. We own and operate them, but only 50%, or roughly about 41 or 42 have commercial operations. So 40 doesn't have any commercial operation at all. These are non-performing assets, if you might call it that.
I mean, it's such a waste. So you have 82, sir. General Hotchkiss, I knew you when you were in the Air Force.
Yeah.
I'm also in the Air Force, as you know,
Yes, I
and I have interest in airports, aircraft, etc. And that's why I posed this question. We have 82 properties under CAAP. Only 42 are doing commercial operations, and the
commercial
rest
operations.
are airports that were
Well,
built where
well.
there is no commercial operations, but I assume these are used
They're
for
still-
private flights.
Yes, Your Honor. They're still being used by general aviation airplanes, and some are used
Cargo?
by flying schools.
I'm sorry?
Flying schools.
For flying schools.
Yes.
My question, sir, is this customary? Meaning, the half of the CAAP areas, are they really supposed to be just for flying schools and for private flights, or are we wasting infrastructure which have been built previously, which can be upgraded so that we have more domestic flights in these airports?
Your Honor, these airports were built many, many years ago, when we only had the C-47 flying all over the Philippines. So what is actually being done now is that some of these airports are being upgraded for commercial operations. And these small airports, which used to be used by the military, especially for military and other government missions, are now being upgraded. So we're catching up, we're on a catch-up mode.
Why is that, sir? What happened that airports which were there and operational, it's cut to less than half? Is it because it is not safe anymore, but because of progress? There have been malls and housing that have been, it became heavily populated, or because there were other better areas for the construction of new airports? What is the reason for that?
Well, essentially, as the Senate President has said, getting commercial flights into an airport is an economic business decision by the airlines themselves. So we cannot force them, nor can we regulate them or force them to fly to a particular airport which has no economic returns for them.
Madam Chair, well, I think admittedly, not every airport is built with commercial viability in mind. There are a lot of considerations. Well, one for one. Sometimes it's military, and this happened years ago. Or sometimes it's the request of a strong political leader in the locality. Gusto niya mayroong airport. Hindi naman kailangan. So, but in other words, what has happened is that now the CAAP have inherited so many of these airports that they have to maintain. But maybe having said that, General Hotchkiss, what you can do is review many of these airports if really it has of no use, whether military, etc. Maybe you can start looking at converting it into some higher value usage, more productive. Because, a classic example is the Iloilo Mandurriao Airport. That's 52 hectares before. We decided to move it and have a new airport in Santa Barbara. The 52 hectares we bidded out to the private sector. Andrew Tan bought it 10 years ago. Today it's a bustling business center where the land is worth 60,000 per square meter when it was only purchased at 2005. So, but in other words, we can appreciate, Madam Chair, that the CAAP just inherited many of these airports. Sometimes you'll never understand why it is there. So, we just have to accept that fact. And given that, maybe the CAAP, together, I don't know which office, maybe NEDA or some other office, can rationalize this, and those which are really not needed, we don't keep on throwing good money after bad.
I agree with the Senate President, and that's what the point I was driving at. Of the 82 airports, which are presently for commercial operations and retain it as such, which should be just closed down, which should be used for flying schools, which are used by the Air Force, military, etc., which should be just closed down and converted into something else more profitable, because when you keep and maintain the whole 82, that's so much capital outlay and more of good money that can be used elsewhere. And just, I read your statement 6 months ago that you have so much land and you intended to go into renewables to lease your land. I think that's a good idea. Yesterday we had a hearing of the state universities and colleges. They have so much land also, underutilized, when they can have more internally generated profit. Perhaps CAAP should look into that, you're correct, Mr. President, with the NEDA, on how to make CAAP to increase your internally generated profit, maybe not necessarily privatizing your land, but developing it into something more profitable. Not just renewables and solar farms, for which I have a personal and environmental bias for, but many other uses. But it's a good idea. Sementado na yan eh. Di ba? It can be solar farms actually in the regions.
Andrew Tan used
Yeah.
as his main highway the runway in Mandurriao. That's 2.1 kilometers of a runway, which is now the main road of his development.
Exactly,
you
these
can imagine,
developers, yeah.
You can imagine how strong he
Sementado na yan eh. At saka yung quality ng semento dati, mas magaganda. At let's say, isang na hindi ginagamit. Kung hindi highway ng mall, gawin yung solar farm. And just, I'm not saying this just because my son is a solar entrepreneur. Give it to somebody else. But use it. Wala ka nang gagawin groundworks masyado at ipapatag sa semento. Nandyan, ilalagay mo na lang yung mga inverters at saka mga solar panels. Your engineers, you know that. So the cost of civil works will be much less. And that can be a PPA project. It can be part of the feed-in tariff hanggang Marso 2016. Ang dami. So we can be very creative in actually utilizing our national assets as long as we are guided accordingly by the NEDA. And perhaps Sec John, you would know what to do. So maybe that inventory would be good, and then that could also be put into PPAs, hindi ba? Kung kalahati umaandar, yung kalahati isara, subject to PPA, you can have more income.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Only if you agree.
In fact, we're going in that direction under the leadership of the chairman of the CAF board, which is the Secretary of Transportation and Communications. We have a CAF Flight Plan 2020, which is geared towards maximizing the full potential of the airports that we have. And 5 of those airports are now under PPP, in fact, which the Senate President knows and everybody knows. And some of the airports we are selecting for use by our 45 flying schools all over the country, because I think we can maximize our potential as a flying school center in the ASEAN region.
Talking about flying schools, General, are we already strict in the regulation of these flying schools, which caused the death of Secretary Robredo because he flew on a plane? There were violations from my understanding. It was being piloted. First, the departure was late, the weather was bad, that was being piloted by a student, etc. Are we more, do we regulate it better?
Yes, madam. We are regulated much better now. In fact, we have run after the inspectors that inspected the airplane of Secretary Robredo because they were not doing their job properly, and they're now facing charges before the ombudsman. And the other, we have not hesitated to suspend flying schools when there is evident non-following of regulations. And
do we have mandatory?
Even airlines we have suspended.
Yes.
Because of none.
That's correct. You should do that. Do you have mandatory psychological tests for pilots and air personnel?
Yes, we have that, right?
That's very
before
basic.
They become
like
pilots.
What happened to the German wings, remember?
Well,
when he was in depression?
we are debating that, madam, because that was one thing, affair. To do a psychiatric test for all pilots.
I think that's important. I don't think that is a human right violation. My office, I have a psychological test for all entrants. That's true.
We do that
it's either you want to
before.
work or not, especially when you are a pilot. The lives of the people are in your hands. You need to have an EQ test, a psychological test. German wings is an example, right? And I think Lufthansa already does that because of the German wings tragedy, what happened a year ago.
All civil aviation administrations everywhere in the world does that for
Why
pilots.
won't we do it in the Philippines if it's done everywhere in the world?
Which one?
Psychological test for pilots.
We are doing that, as I said.
We are.
Before we issue the pilot's
I see.
licenses.
I see.
Before
Okay.
they undergo flying lessons, in fact. We do that. But that's only one time. We cannot do that for administrative reasons on a yearly basis, for instance.
Yeah, Mr. Hotchkiss, there's one point that I would like to bring out in this hearing. You know, our terminals look like EDSA with all the billboards all over the place. Why is that? Why are we And how much income and where does that income go? How much income do we derive out of those ads and where does it go?
Your Honor, according to Republic 9497, the CAAP has fiscal autonomy. In other words, the fees that it charges goes to the improvement of terminals and especially aviation safety oversight, and especially aviation
Just
safety
first question. Who authorizes and who decides on the placement of these billboards? Because I tell you, I have been going around the country, wala pa po ako nakikitang terminal na hindi po kamukha ng EDSA. Dahilan po puro billboards ang nakikita natin. So, the first question, why is there such policy? Kulang ba ang pera natin para po maghanap tayo ng paraan para magkaroon muli ng additional income? That's the first question. Can I have an answer?
Naabutan na po namin yung mga billboards na yan.
No.
And we don't have a policy right now yet.
Huwag mong sabihin na inabutan dahil renewable naman yan eh. Hindi naman yan perpetual na ang lease eh. That is renewable. Right or wrong?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, therefore, you cannot use to be a reason na inabutan na lang namin yan. In other words, if a policy is not to allow these billboards, then there is no billboard. I mean, so again I raise, what is the policy on this?
As far as the CAAP board is concerned, where the Department of Tourism sits, we need to have some billboard for tourism purposes as well. But for the commercial applications, we are rationalizing this right now, Your Honor. And definitely we'd like to have advice on this.
You know, again, would you agree with me that we should minimize, if not totally ban, these commercial billboards? Because they do not add to tourism, come on. Wala pakialam ang turismo dun eh.
I completely agree. I completely agree with that we minimize or eradicate it. Minimize probably, but not.
Either you have it or you don't.
Magkano ba ho ang income sa
Yes,
billboards?
that was. How much is the income? That was my next question. How much income is realized and where does this go? Remember, these are public places. These are public infrastructures. No, they own the building. The building is,
Including the building, Your Honor.
These are CAAP property.
Yes.
So they own it, and then they've internally generated income through the billboards.
Yes.
Is the income
through concessionary fees.
correct? But is the Senate President's question is this income reflected
Yes,
in
it
your
is.
annual,
It is
and
reflected
you
in our
retain the
budget.
income?
Yes.
Magkano ba ho ang kinikita ng CAAP sa mga billboard na ito? Is it worth it to keep it? In fact, if I hear the Senate President right, he's asking you to pull it down after perhaps the expiration of these contracts.
We will submit our data on this. But it's a small.
Make calls. I want it now.
You want to know 1 million, 10
Because-
million, 100 million?
Ito General Hotchkiss.
Yes.
You're saying that there are concessionaires. All right? Yes, I have heard that. You contract a concessionaire. The concessionaire sells the space. Right or wrong?
No, Your Honor.
What?
They use the space
Come on.
for.
They have concessionaires. Ang nagbebenta ng espasyo, ang concessionaire. Pinagkikitaan ng concessionaire ang property, ang ari-arian ng pamahalaan. Okay. So, the first question that, because matagal ko na, in fact, doon sa amin noong eleksyon nakaraan may mga political billboards doon sa loob ng terminal picture ng mga kandidato. So, you know, I know that you have concessionaires who would sell these spaces. I know that for a fact. Now, I want to know how much income you realize out of this rental of public places, and where does the money go, what is used for.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, we want, can we have that?
Income po, sir, yung ating mga advertising sa kanila space sa rent income po.
Okay.
Pero yung details mo wala tayo.
As far as concessionaires and rent income is concerned, Your Honor, in 2014, we earned 101 million pesos and 28,000 pesos.
101 million.
Million, yes.
All right.
We estimate in 2015, 102 million.
Okay.
102 million.
Now, first question. This is corporate income.
Yes, Your Honor.
And how is it being used?
It's used to operate and maintain the terminals that we have.
It's used to maintain,
Operate and maintain.
operate, and maintain.
Yes.
You mean
Air conditioning, etc. It's not enough, Your Honor.
it's not enough? It's not enough? Do you get the best return from this business activity? At 101, kung talagang ito'y policy natin that we rent out this space, is this a correct or this is income, really the true income that we should realize, or this is the income of the concessionaires and they turn around and make 3 times this money that they invest?
At least it helps in the maintenance of...
Now, how much does the concessionaires rent out the space that they rent from you? May mga advertisers naman yan eh. I know.
Kung advertisement po, sometimes we rent the spaces. Yes, that's right.
They're renting spaces from you and then they rent it out.
Yes, that is allowed.
So they rent it out. They rent it from you for 100 pesos. They rent it out for 300 pesos. Right?
Yes.
Oh, no. So, ang pinagtutubuan, laway lang ang kanilang kapital, kausap lang, and they turn around and make money. So, you know, I will not, hindi ko po bibitiwan itong issue ito because marami na akong nakikita. Ganon din sa Mactan, Cebu. Mactan, Cebu, you have so many billboards. Tayo lang, sa ibang bansa, wala naman akong nakikitang billboard na umaapaw sa terminal. And it's ugly. I must tell you this. It is ugly that you have commercial billboards all over the place. Hindi lang signage ng mga establishments doon. You should impose discipline. And let me be candid about this. This is a source of graft.
Which the billboards?
Of course.
100 million. According to LBRMO, it's reflected in their corporate income.
Right, it is reflected
Yes.
in the... But how much money is made by the concessionaire who pays this 100 million is something that is a loss to the government.
Is there
Because
simply one concessionaire for the 100 million income?
No, marami yan.
Marami.
Marami yan. In other words, what I'm saying, if we are going, firstly, I have reservations, and does not feel good about seeing all these billboards when you get
Pangit
down
nga.
from the airplane. Ang dami-dami. Akala mo na sa EDSA ka. Pangalawa, hindi po ako'y naniniwala na ito po'y pinaghahanap buhayan ng mga may kakilala sa mga sa kaap. In other words, okay, I will rent that post. I will say, okay, give me that post. I'll pay you 100 pesos for that space. I'll turn around and give it to a commercial enterprise and sell that same space for 300. Ganun lang yan now. So, either we make the correct income or we remove this kind of practice in the airports. You don't even bid this out, I suppose.
We are going in that direction, Your Honor, especially on
going
advertising.
in that direction. In other words, you are not bidding it today.
We have a department order, the DOTC order of many years back, which determines the rates. Now, we have to go back to the board to get these rates updated. And the guidance right now is to maximize the income of the terminal so that we can operate and maintain it based on the income that we derive from there. Right now, the operations and maintenance of all our terminals are subsidized by our navigation fees, which are not supposed to be used for operations and maintenance.
See, I am not prepared to ask these questions because I have not examined your financial statements, but there is always an opportunity. And I would suggest, Madam Chair, I'm giving a advance notice, that we will ask these questions when the budget is presented before the floor. Or maybe we can ask for another hearing and just so we can look at this more closely. Because if we are going to, I'm not saying that we should not, if we're going to continue this policy, if that's the policy thrust of the DOTC, if we need this income, fine. But let us do it properly. Let us maximize. Let us make sure that the government gets the correct revenues, rather than somebody making money out of our own, some private sector making money out of the assets that we have. And maybe I can ask for a complete report from the CAAP and the other Mactan, Cebu. I know it's Clark. Hindi pa ako nakakaraan.
Even those not under CAAP have billboards?
Of course.
Yes, Madam Chair. In fact,
Why are we the billboard capital of the world instead of having... why don't you just... Are you moving, Mr. President, that upon expiration of the leases that we don't renew it, at least for those under the CAAP?
I don't do rash judgment on that. I would rather, tingnan natin at ayusin naman natin. Unang-una, ito po ba'y pulisiya natin na dapat pairalin? I'm open to that. If it is, then what can we do so that we can regulate it properly at wag namang kahit na, basta saksak tayo ng saksak. There must be some regulation so that aesthetically naman hindi pangit. But if we're going to do it, let's do it properly. Huwag yung pinagkikitaan tayo ng mga brokers diyan, brokers are making money. So these are policy issues. That's why, Madam Chair, I'm not prepared to insist that we do not renew the billboards, but I would insist that there should be a policy review by the Secretary of the DOTC on this point, because this is something that, these little cracks in the bureaucracy which should be addressed.
Madam Chair, I fully agree with the Senate President from a policy standpoint, not distinguishing from the CAAP airports and the non-CAAP airports. We will review this policy. Admittedly, we have not tackled this during our term. Probably it's an old DO that it exists. I think the general sentiment is still not to prohibit, but really regulate, standardize, and make sure there's a mechanism such that no one makes money off mere laway. We will try to find out how to eliminate that possibility that when you rent out at 100, the bidder, the concessionaire could rent it out at 300. So definitely that shouldn't happen, but we'll sit down with the airport operators and figure this out. But again, we will review the policy, Your Honor.
I would understand it to mean that the Senate President is asking for a policy review not only for the airports under CAAP, but also for the other airports And it's an eyesore.
It's an eyesore, really.
So why
really.
would we tolerate something like that?
Well,
So,
I'm
pending the
submitting it
policy-
as a policy review, no?
Yes.
Madam, because I could just imagine if you would listen to MIA, they would make more money from the airports being a larger airport, and it's a legitimate source of income. I think what is important is there is a standard. It looks nice, it looks pleasant, and it doesn't become an eyesore at the end of the day.
What is the policy in the other airports? Let's say around the region muna. Yes, Manager Villarete.
Madam Chair, good morning. Senator, good morning. With respect to Mactan Cebu International Airport, when the present board and myself came in 2010, we found out, of course, that these billboards were already there, and the methodology of entering into contract is actually negotiation. Through an administrative order, the administrative order is just minimum. So the policy that was changed during our term actually to do this through open competitive bidding. In other words, we did it out, and then all the advertisers, main advertisers will propose what rate they're going to pay MCIA.
Is not a hazard or a risk having those billboards in that area?
Madam Chair,
Pag may bagyo, may hangin, or
Yes,
it's an additional structure, even if it is made out of tarpaulin, hindi ba, rinoroll lang yun. But even the mounting structure, is that an additional hazard?
Madam Chair, with respect to the billboard, for the time, there's only one place that we place all the billboards. And there are specifications that we provide during the bidding. For example, they are the ones who are going to build the structure, and they have to pass to the office of the building official, and that means that these are checked in terms of load, in terms of how they will perform in their turn and things like this. No, as far as the operator is concerned, they are also instructed that it will be visible whenever there are typhoon signals that are raised by Pag-asa. And thirdly, with respect to what is placed, the policy in the board, because the DOT sits in the board, is that all of these advertisements should pass through the DOT.
Well, anyway. Maganda pa yun.
Are we the only airport, the only country in the world that sells billboard space in its airports? Or are we mimicking another country in Asia?
Yeah, that was a question I wanted to raise also. Sa paligid natin, saan ba ang airport terminal na puno ng advertisement? Huh?
We're referring to billboards.
Billboards, yeah. Oo. Yung huge sa billboards sa loob ng terminal. Ayaw yata.
Madam Chair, Mr. Senator, I think the question really is whether it's puno or there are few. Because I know for a fact that there are billboards in Singapore.
Ha? Paano?
There are billboards in Singapore. There are billboards in, I just came from Myanmar. There are billboards in Myanmar.
Don't compare us naman to Myanmar. Medyo.
And then another, I think, Mr.
For
Chair,
example, in Japan, mayroon ko bang nakikitang billboard sa mga airport? Yung sa loob ng terminal, ha?
I haven't been to Japan for a long time, sir. I cannot comment on Japan.
Anyway, yes.
Madam Chair, within Changi and Incheon, we could see billboards within the airport. I think that, in fact, that is the primary location to be those billboards inside the airport.
Well, Madam Chair, I just want the review because I am not prepared to say ban these billboards, but certainly there is basis for us to review this policy and see how we can rationalize it by having a more pleasant impose certain standards on this and maximize our revenue. Why are we not bidding this out? Why are we negotiating this? When you negotiate, there is discretion. When there is discretion, you know what happens.
As a policy, Madam Chair, it should be bid out. In fact, MIA has bid out probably General Honrado could share his experience in bidding out ad space in MIA.
Madam Chair, Your Honor, in the 2015 budget, we expect to earn 172 million out of the advertisement. Out of this 172 million of income, I would like to make a ballpark figure, about 15 to 20% only involves outdoor advertisement, because we have very few billboards owned by the government. The inside advertisements here are being bidded out. One good example is that when the advertisement of Terminal 1 was terminated sometime in 2013, the running price then, which inabutan po namin, was 6,600 per site. During the bidding, which commenced in 2014, it was raised to 37,000 per site. So nagkakaroon po ng for Terminal 1, 2, and 3.
I don't think we're referring to...
No, yeah, that's correct, Madam Chair. Kahit dun sa loob, makikita mo halos wala ka ng madaanan. You're confronted with billboards all over, and it's so unsightly.
We want to see more of the promotions of the Department of Tourism.
Yes.
Yes, we want to see the Rice Terraces and the Pagsanghan Falls. We want to see the Dugong and the Iloilo Convention Center. We want to see the heritage of vegan rather than oil. We know that it's revenue generating, but perhaps it should always so be curated. And I'm sure hindi naman yung papayagan may makita kayong mukha o pangalan ng politiko doon. Wag naman siguro. Yan ang bawal. Sa billboards, di ba? Hindi naman pwedeng mangyari yan. So, it has to be curated. The Senate President's correct. It has to be regulated. And perhaps, if we don't outright ban it, but look at the Incheon or the Changi example on certain areas where it is the billboard area, if ever that should be renewed and allowed, based on the policy review. And perhaps the deadline for the policy review would be within the month of October before your budget goes to plenary, so that the committee and the Senate President's office can help you decide on what to do when these contracts expire.
We will comply, Your Honor.
One final issue. May we know the status of the O&M operation and maintenance of the airport, which are bunched together, like Iloilo, Bacolod, and I don't know what else. Can you just have a briefing on that? What's this exactly? Where are we?
Mr. Chair, we've pre-qualified already 5 bidders, and we are going on the second round of one-on-ones for the finalization of the concession agreement, and we expect bid submission in December of 2015, Your Honor.
And for the record, which of these airports are bunched together, and who are the bidders for each one of them?
The 5 pre-qualified bidders are, Your Honor, GMR Megawide, SM San Miguel, together with Incheon Airport, Aboitiz, together with Vinci Airports. They operate European and Siem Reap Airport.
And they are bidding for all of these airports together, or have they chosen?
They have not indicated officially yet what bundle they will be bidding for.
Yeah, so you have bundle Iloilo Negros,
The first
Iloilo Bacolod, what? What are the bundles?
Iloilo, Panglao, and Bacolod.
Iloilo, Panglao, and Bacolod, and then that's one.
Yes, Your Honor. Then Lagindingan and Panglao. And Davao.
Lagindingan and Panglao.
The bundle, Your Honor, is Iloilo and Bacolod as one, then Panglao, Lagindingan, and Davao as another bundle.
Okay. So those are the 5 airports that you intend to have the private sector operate and maintain. And again, you're saying that the process will be completed, and when will the bidding take place?
The bid submission, Your Honor,
Yes.
where they submit their bids in
yes.
December,
December, and when do you expect to award it?
usually about a month from then.
So let's say roughly in February.
January, latest Feb.
Let you award.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
I just have an average cost of one airport. You said that Iloilo and Bacolod have been lodged under one. Let's say the Bacolod Airport. How much would that cost in pesos?
To build a whole new airport, Madam Chairman?
Based on the
The
the-
PPP bid.
PPP bid.
The budget for Bacolod is, we will look at
30. Just so that we have an idea.
roughly what? Bacolod, where's Bacolod? It's 3.6 billion initial capital apex. Pesos, madam.
Ibig sabihin nun, Rene, they have to, the lowest bid that should be submitted is 3, ano bang ibig sabihin nun? 3 billion?
Now, that is the internal government estimate, Your Honor, of what they will be, how much you have to spend to meet the required specifications.
That's what they have to spend.
Yes, our estimate.
Your estimate of what they have to spend. And what is the fee that they're going to pay the government? I suppose that's also in the bid documents. That's not
We have
confidential.
not disclosed that to them.
So, you have not disclosed
That
it.
will be their bid, Your Honor.
But you have minimum. I mean, that's part of when
Yes.
you issue out the bid documents. Meron kayong minimum.
It's a bid strategy, Your Honor. Sometimes you may want to disclose it, sometimes you don't.
Okay. So I would not ask you to disclose it here in public. We just want to know whether the mechanics that you have. So you set out an amount which they will have to pay once they
win the bid.
Win the bid.
Yes.
Now, and also there are certain amounts that you have to set which they have to commit for them to repair and expand whatever the airport.
Yes. They have, what we set out is what are called minimum performance standards. Like you have to build X space, it has to be this beautiful, it has to accommodate this many passengers.
Just to clarify, Mr. President, the 3.5 billion is of the Bacolod Airport. That's a Silay Airport, right?
Yes.
Is the Philippine government counterpart?
No, that's our
What is this?
internal estimate of how much it would cost to make the airport
To rehabilitate it.
maganda.
So 3.5 billion because it's already a new airport, di ba? Itong Silay, bago ito. Para pagandahin pa, what do you call it? Rehabilitation.
And expansion.
Expansion.
Kasi crowded na ho.
3.5 billion just for the Silay Airport. And let's say Iloilo Airport, bago lang yan, di ba? How much would it cost? 40? Isn't that the new airport? Magdagdag ng 40 na naman.
Yes. So the initial, we can disclose it here in public. Yeah. So the initial for Iloilo, the phase one, what they call the initial build, is 4 billion pesos. Build. What our estimate of what they will have to build.
That they will have to
To
build.
expand
To
or
expand
rehabilitate
and
it.
improve, modernize. So it's to expand, beautify, and modernize.
And there is a separate fee for winning, for the transfer of possession to them.
Yes, that's the bid amount.
That's a bid amount. That's
Yeah.
separate.
So, for example, I will say, I will bid 1 peso to win this airport. If I win it, our internal estimate is that winner has to spend 4 billion to meet the
Is that
performance standard.
do they put up a performance bond in order that?
Yes, there's a bid security and a performance fund, a construction.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
the bid for PPP is quite different. It is not comparable to 9184. Initially, when you hear the number 4 billion, we tend to assume this is an ABC. It is an approximation of how much they will spend. And a glaring advantage or difference that we saw in Mactan, Cebu, the approximate cost that we saw was 17 billion. Big parameter was either a subsidy or a negative subsidy, meaning a concession fee. Government then was willing to spend up to 4 billion in subsidy. It turned out because the big boys were competing and there were it was a level playing field. Instead of government paying, we ended up receiving 14.4 billion pesos without a single without a peso to be spent. So at the end of the day, the amount to be forked out by the concessionaire is not only the 14.4 plus the approximate 17B. He could spend probably 20B or even 10B. That's all it's called. But they're going to be measured on the specifications we require them to do.
Okay, one final point before I go. We were in Bacolod. The Bacolod airfield or airport before, what are we doing about that? We just leave it lying out there? That's a very valuable asset. How many hectares is that, and what are we doing about that?
So the status of Bacolod Airport is that 50% of that is owned by Philippine Airlines, 50% of the property is owned by CAP.
And how many hectares would that be?
We'll get back to you on that. 60? Around 60 hectares.
Our share is 60 hectares.
No, that's the total area.
That's a total area, 60 hectares. And you're saying that Philippine Airlines owns about half of that?
Yes.
Or only the tarmac? Double check.
No,
Huh?
part of the runway, Your Honor.
So it's part of the runway.
Halos
All right.
ha-
Now,
50.
what are we doing about assuming 30 hectares? How much is that worth today?
No idea, Your Honor.
You have no... Okay. Sabihin mo na ng 10,000, which is very low, huh? 10,000 times 30 hectares, 3 billion? Is that, right? Whatever. That asset has been lying there for years. Why is there no effort to dispose of it, bid it out, and generate income, assets?
There are still some general aviation airplanes that use it, Your Honor. It used to be flying schools used to operate in that area, but
goodness.
we have banned it from there now.
I'm sorry?
We have taken out the flying schools from
Yes,
operating.
obviously, in terms of the return on your asset, it's crazy to have that general aviation school. So I go back to the question: why are we not taking the initiative in disposing of that and have it develop into a commercial business park and generate income and generate an activity?
There's a policy issue that will probably have to come from...
My
high
goodness
levels.
gracious.
We'll take the initiative, Your Honor, and clearly what we saw in Iloilo could easily be replicated in Bacolod.
Very easy. That airport is right in the center of the city. Ang ganda ng lugar na yun. Why are we not taking the initiative? That's very, very valuable piece of property. I am sure you advertise at Secretary Abaya, pag-aagawan niya ng mga developers. Between SM and Ayala, nag-aaway-aaway sila sa Negros eh. Here is 30 hectares. Yung iba nag-aaway doon.
We'll look into it, Your Honor, but definitely, again, you've been praised on what happened to Iloilo, and easily it could be replicated in Bacolod, and probably other airports as well.
Yeah, it's Cagayan de Oro. I know what you're doing there with Cagayan de Oro.
Cagayan de Oro, our direction there is, we are swapping with the Philippine Air Force in Sangli, because what we intend to do is to drive general aviation to Sangli,
Okay.
Philippine Air Force transferring to Lumbia, Your Honor. But again, there's another school of thought that is also prime commercial property. But so far, our decision is to allow Air Force to transfer to Lumbia, so they'll have a good presence in northern Mindanao, Your Honor.
Yung sa Bacolod, at ilan yun? Is that 30 hectares ba? 30 hectares? So, at 10,000 per hectare, no? So, you multiply it by 30. Is that 300,000 square meters? You multiply that just by 10, that's 3 billion, 3 billion. 3 billion ba? 30 billion. Oh. Oh no, I have also a meeting. Oh, I have. Oh. Yes, but anyway. Oh, sige. Can you just tell, Yeah, maybe Secretary Abaya, you should review this because these are assets, huh? That's such a valuable asset that is just like, and number two, it is an asset which can be used by Bacolod to generate internal economic activity.
Yes, Your Honor. We'll quickly review and evaluate things and make a decision
We
immediately.
should think outside of the box on this. Sayang naman. Anyway, sige, my chair has left.
Your Honor, probably we could continue with our
Yeah,
presentation
please.
and generate more questions, Your Honor.
Next slide, Your Honor, is the airports that we're expanding because they're crowded. Primarily, that's the passenger terminal building. Next slide. The third are the budget we have to improve the safety and comforts of these key secondary airports.
Ikaw naman, hindi mo. Antiki is here.
Yes, Your Honor.
Why are you not pointing that out to the chair earlier? That there is something.
Your Honor, Governor Sali is smiling behind you.
Huh?
We point.
What? This is for livelihood, hindi naman.
Not for both feed, Your Honor, but for the airport, Your Honor.
For the airport.
Oh, right.
What is the, okay, sige na, hindi ko natatingin kung para saan yung 10 million.
And then the next one is our airports, which we are expanding to convert from turboprop to A320 capable. Next slide. So for our ports, we're allocating 1.2 billion in order to build out what we call social ports in remote areas and municipalities and islands which need connection to trade and to commerce. So we're building several social ports. So next slide, please. Next slide. So,
maybe we declare a few minutes recess. It's 12 already, and maybe you can eat first while we are waiting for our chair to come back. I have somebody's waiting for me. So I exercise my prerogative to declare a recess for lunch, and you can resume it when our chair comes back. So session is suspended for lunch.
Thank you, Your Honor. See an award there. That's good.
Where?
the airports, Monday or
What airport?
the regional airports.
Well, bid submission's December, so yeah.
Hi, how are you? Yes, of course. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Okay, I'm okay.
Very good to see you.
Yeah.
We sent a letter to your office because we're working on the syntaxes.
Okay.
And we noticed that there are some projects that can't be done to ensure universal rights under the DOTC. Yeah, but we haven't had the chance to meet with them. But we're going to be sending.
Sige, please send a letter then.
Like the number 5, student taxes. So we'd like
To look at road safety.
yeah, road safety. But it's like, we met with DPWH already. But they said that a lot of it will actually overlap with your office.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that it was with the syntax.
Okay.
So
Sige.
we'll send another
Yeah,
letter
please.
again.
Get in touch with, well, Mark is our chief of staff. We'll set it up. Hi, how are you?
already exhausted all his questions. We would continue with the hearing now. Since we were in the issue of airports, may I know from the good secretary and Mia, I do not see in the NEP any possible provision from the DOTC Mia budget, any contingency fund to support or to implement the Supreme Court decision ruling on the SPATCO case. I'd like to know, therefore, since I don't see any provision in the DOTC Mia budget, how would you address this issue? We must clearly follow the Supreme Court decision, which was unanimous in its decision. I know that there is a motion for reconsideration, but the MR will just take a couple of weeks, and with a unanimous decision, not that we are anticipating what will happen in the courts, assuming the decision is upheld, what do we do? Yeah, this is, I think it's about time that it was resolved. This spans 4 administrations. It's a sticky issue between the Philippines and German bilateral relations. It would say black mark on the Philippines in terms of foreign investments, especially in Europe. And this was a subject matter of the Merkel-Pinoy talks when she visited Germany. So we are glad that the Supreme Court had finally decided on this. We cannot not follow a Supreme Court decision. I do not see any budgetary allocation, understandably, because this only happened last quarter of the year. May I therefore hear from the Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That is true, and whatever the decision, final and executory decision of the Supreme Court, government will follow. As you've mentioned, there is a motion for reconsideration. I believe eventually when this is made final and executory, there is a policy that this will go to a COA process, and only after that COA process, I guess, then government in general will take the effort of putting it into the national expenditure program.
Yes, may the Chair be enlightened, please, on the COA process?
We're not familiar, Your Honor. Undersecretary Gonzalez merely mentioned it, but we have to look into it and
a COA process. You mean the Supreme Court decides, the government has to pay. Remember, for every month that we delay payment, assuming the decision is final and executory, we are using people's money to pay 60 million pesos. Is it pesos or dollars? A non-payment. 60 million pesos a month for non-compliance of the Philippine government. In short, what I'm saying is that it is to everyone's interest to abide by the decision so that this black eye of the Philippines in the international community for all these years, if not decades, is finally resolved. Yes. So I'd like to know why we are passing on a Supreme Court decision to the Commission on Audit. I do not understand.
Madam Chair, we're not familiar, but as reported to me by legal, any government claim has to go through COA. So the little that I know, it would be a final executory decision of the Supreme Court. The entity who has a favorable decision should then go to COA. COA will then either validate, I'm not sure, Your Honor, and it is COA who will direct government now to make it part of the budget, Your Honor.
From my understanding then, it is a usual process that, although that's unfamiliar to me, that the Supreme Court decision, which is final and executory, would go back to a government department, and then they would validate. How can the COA, which has fiscal autonomy and another institution of government in and out in the executive, review a Supreme Court decision? That's new to me. That the COA, a fiscal autonomous institution in the executive, will validate a unanimous Supreme Court decision which is final and executory? I'm not certain that your lawyers are accurate in saying that.
Well, Madam Chair, if there's no such process, then government would pay. Allow us to do some research and we'll report to you, Madam Chair, this part of COA in a claims process, Your Honor.
Because I would have asked the COA also. This has been of interest to me because for my first term in 1998, I've sat here listening to investigations of the SPATCO. We followed it, and then finally the Merkel Pinoy talks, etc. Then whenever I go to to Europe, to Germany, etc., then we always say, oh, the Filipinos, they always change the rules. Every administration, not this administration alone. I mean, they sue foreign investors, private sector, etc. And whenever that, according to them, they use NAIA 3, it's not owned by government, but we're using it for free. So you see how we feel. It's just not right to be using something that we don't own and we don't pay for it. I'm not taking sides in this issue. I just laud the Supreme Court that finally they made a decision. So I was looking for it in the budget, so it's not there. So we're saying that we will not pay them and we will incur 60 million pesos a month from interest alone, according to the Supreme Court decision. I believe that that is computed if we don't pay. If it's not in the 2016 budget, that will be in 2017, 60 million times 12. That's plus the 3 months of the year. So assuming the decision will be final and executory by in a month's time, so 12 months, more than 12 months, that's 60 million. Then the new administration will come with the new secretary, will tell us to allocate for the interest payments on because of the non-payment. You see my frustration, Secretary. And the bulk of the payment of 25 billion pesos, if you count out the interest all these years when people were arguing about payments from the Court of Appeals, Supreme Court, etc. So pera ng taong bayan ang inaaksaya sa argumento ng argumento, kailangan naman bayar. At the end of the day, babayaran din lang. So bayaran na yung tinalaga ng korte kaysa we're dragging our feet, baka sakaling hindi kailangan bayaran. Hindi. Yeah. 60 million a month.
Madam Chair, we just have to review all these policies. If policy dictates we allocate, then we allocate. But if policy dictates there's such a COA process, then I would merely follow what is existing policy, Your Honor.
Sure. Thank you for that. It's better that we're careful in making statements because you don't know the process. Perhaps this is the first time it has happened, that in the middle of the budgetary process, a Supreme Court decision is made that a department has to implement, which is not provided for in the budget, right? So anyway, yeah.
Well, Madam, we have a situation similar to this. There was a claim in Iloilo before, so we went through that COA process. So it's not the first time, Your Honor.
Oh, COA. COA reviews perhaps the numbers and where it will go and which agency will pay for it. In this case, it's the DOTC. It's MIA, correct? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you for that information. Just let us know, just in case the Supreme Court decides, makes a decision before the end of the year, before the budget is passed, just in case the COA reviews its process, it is incumbent upon us to provide the funding for that so we can carve out from somewhere the funding to comply, because I, as Chair of Finance, don't want to be blamed in the future that we didn't allocate, so the government had to pay people had to pay 60 million pesos more a month because we ignored a Supreme Court decision. Then 60 times 10, 600, almost, tama ba yun? Almost 1 billion, assuming we drag our feet and we don't pay, 1 billion of wasted time and resources because we did not pay up. Ayun, ayoko lang ma-blame. That's why I'm very careful or even passionate about this is we've been warned if we don't comply with the Supreme Court decision. We say we, that's government. Yeah.
I fully agree, Your Honor. I guess we just have to follow existing policies and rules.
We must go through the process. Yes, thank you. The airport, let's move away from the airport. But just one last question po. Since you're rehabilitating all these airports, of course you would agree with me that we must spend our money wisely by building resilient infrastructure. Is that taken into consideration? Do we take into consideration natural hazards and risks? Do we actually have risk assessments? Do we actually use energy efficiency as one of the benchmarks for this sustainable architecture's infrastructure? And for example, as simple as using LED, because in a previous hearing the DOE says meron silang programa para palitan na lahat ng mga ilaw sa LED. ito ba'y ginagawa ng ating DOTC sa inyong mga gusali, let's say in the NAIA, which was recently rehabilitated? Do we have LED lights or are they still CFL? Parang hindi LED nung ako'y huling nagbiyahe, or LED.
For Terminal 1 po, fully LED na po lahat yung mga lights na yon. For Terminal 3, the board has just passed the resolution asking for the 118 million to put LED into Terminal 3. And this should be executed by the first quarter of next year for the bidding. Now, malaki po ang capital investment dito, but ang recovery namin is 28 months because of the savings on power consumption.
Laki naman po ng savings. Yeah, it's a no-brainer
Yes, ma'am.
actually.
So,
yeah.
28 months po, marirecover namin
I think
yung
it's very
out of the
clear.
savings.
And all those bidding in these PPP projects for rehabilitation, to improvement, etc., I think, if I could you kindly submit to the committee, what are the terms of reference when they build this? How do you retrofit a public infrastructure, take into consideration natural hazards of earthquakes? Have you checked the latest geohazard maps in those areas? Of course, those airports have been existing there for a long time. But when you retrofit and rehabilitate a structure, you must check the latest geohazard maps of the MGB. I don't know how accurate it is. Also, the retrofitting of structures, maybe DPWH, kayo, mga engineero, you would know better. In case of an 8.2 magnitude quake, kaya ba ng ating struktura yun? In case of fires, etc., storms, more intense, are those all taken into consideration? Yes, I'd like to hear from the airport manager.
For MIA, Terminal 1 is already compliant with this with the new bidding code through what they call this it's not compliant to the 2010, but they have an alternate one to comply. So compliant na po tayo for seismic incidents. The same thing with Terminal 3 because it was all the seismic defect has been retrofitted or addressed in 2013. For Terminal 2 po, we are now in the process of coming up with the terms of preference for the architectural and engineering investigation of Terminal 2. For Terminal 3, the all domestic, ang sabi po ng DPWH, hindi na kailangan kasi one story lang siya. So we should be compliant for all the three major terminals by the end of 2016.
Thank you for that information. I would assume that we would have a template for domestic and international basic how to address seismic to retrofit it against earthquakes, against other natural hazards like strong winds and typhoons, floods, etc., and to make it perhaps a more sustainable structure. What do I mean? Yes, LED is correct. It's a big investment, but ang laki ng cost savings dyan. Even air conditioner, perhaps using inverters or whichever is the newest, best technology. How about the reuse of water for flushing, for example? Is the reuse of water taken into consideration in terms of the water efficiency in our buildings?
Madam Chair, as for NIA po, we are now using 40% out-of-path deep wells, but soon we have to close all of these wells as mandated by the National Water Board Regulatory Board. So we are now on the final stage of the TOR for the build, operate, and transfer of 3 STPs, sewage treatment plant, which will convert about 10,000 liters a day. But this will be for the non-potable use because 40% of our use is for cleaning the runways and the ramps and for the gardening. So yun po yung manggagaling na po sa STP natin.
Correct. You're correct in saying that. Well, let's not use clean water for cleaning the runways. We can use, if you have sewage treatment plants, to use the reused water for watering the plants and for cleaning the runways. All of these I ask because in the wake of El Nino, which is happening now in the next several months to the first quarter of next year, governments should take the lead in water conservation. And that's, I'm glad you mentioned the NWRB. I hope that they would be more aggressive in aiding, assisting all government agencies in water conservation, among many others. Perhaps, Mr. Secretary, you should coordinate with the DOE and really walk their talk in terms of energy efficiency. and perhaps coordinate with all the NWRD, which is under the DNR, so that we can have water efficiency, and let our airports be the models of disaster resilient or climate resilient infrastructure. And perhaps even in your PPPs, it would be good to see what these private sector contractors, engineering firms have to offer us. It shouldn't be building as usual, because we are facing difficult and different times. You know that better. You're an engineer.
We will comply, Your Honor. We will coordinate. Well, one thing we could already foresee from the bidding out of the PPPs is it is in the best interest of the concessionaire that he would operate the airport efficiently, because that will redound to his returns. So reusing of water, investing in LEDs and appropriate lighting, and in fact to take it to the extent of having intelligent systems will definitely work in their favor. In fact, there was a company that approached us having a proposal and was willing to pilot their proposal. It's now being done in Clark International Airport. They will show to you, they will invest in the appropriate infrastructure like lighting systems and intelligent sensors to prove that going this way will eventually save us money. So it's being, probably President Tanwatco could explain that in brief.
Madam Secretary, Chairman, yes, like the Secretary said, there is that study being conducted in the Clark International Airport. We want the existing terminal and the new terminal to be constructed to begin working at a green airport. And that's why we...
I wish, because you plan to make Clark the green city, and that's where the German-funded climate change center will be, I think, within Clark. I was briefed yesterday by Secretary Sering.
Yes, Madam Chair. The green city will be located around in a location after the airport. Yeah, but since the airport will be the showcase of the green city, we want to be in conjunction with whatever development service in the green
Could
city.
you kindly tell me what are the components of your green airport?
One, Madam Chair, is the right now we're inviting over accepting offers for the construction of solar farms within the civil aviation complex. Again, this is subject to the restrictions to be provided by CAAP, as long as it will not provide any interference with flight.
Will the Clark Airport run on purely solar energy, or just a part of it perhaps?
Only, Madam Chair.
So this will be PPA.
Most likely,
It will
Madam
be
Chair.
for own use, not for the rental or of your property for the feed-in tariff till March of 2016. This will be for own use.
Yes, Madam Chair. Originally, the proponents were looking at the feed-in tariff scheme. However, because of the deadline set next year, they thought it more valuable to provide electricity to the airport instead of the FIT scheme. And hopefully we'll be able to get enough tenders.
Do you have to go through a cooperative, or it's direct, it will be own use, no cooperative?
At this point, Madam Chair, it's own use. Wala pa pong cooperative.
Okay. Apart from the possibility of solar energy fulfilling part of your energy requirements, how else can you, let's teach the other airports, let's see how it can be a green airport. What is your model in the world, if any, to make it a green airport?
Right now, Madam Chair, it's still in the preliminary stages, so there's nothing concrete when it comes to becoming a green airport, except for the solar panel and the solar farm development.
Well, that's what I mean, Secretary. If we had a template of what green sustainable architecture and engineering would be, of what a climate resilient infrastructure would be, perhaps it's not new. This has been ongoing more than 10 years in the world. Perhaps you can, it's actually simple. If you can reuse water, so water catchment. The water catchment law has been here since 1989. So Secretary Babes has done it in the fort. under the Rotonda more than 10 years ago, if you can use a water catchment, if you have solar, what else? Perhaps don't use toxic materials, use indigenous materials more. Of course, it will have to be cement, but what kind of cement? I mean, you would know that better. What kind of glass? Iba na ang technology, di ba? Even air conditioning, etc. Even in terms of the design and architecture, so that you use the least light. Hindi ba? Then you want to make it look like maybe the Changi of Singapore na mas maraming halaman. It's really up to you. What I'm saying is that we pride ourselves in saying we will be the green airport, but we don't have a plan apart from solar. Solar is very good. I'm very pro RE. But I think we should have a clearer plan, Mr. Secretary, so that all our airports will comply. Because what am I saying? We want this budget to be the greenest budget that we will pass. And you may think I'm being hard on you. I talk like this with every agency. Because I think whether you are in infrastructure or transport and communications or DNR or health, there's a part of the budget that you always use for sustainability.
Well, Madam Chair, the new Bohol Airport, the Panglao Airport, which is ODA with the Japanese, the JICA is helping us, is a environmentally sustainable airport. It is very clear in the title. Your mention of solar power, reuse of water. We could take a look at it. We could send to you a report on which components of the airport and how its claim for being green is really evidenced, and we could present it to you. But clearly, the direction of Panglao Airport is to make it a green and environmentally sustainable airport, Your Honor.
Thank you. Actually, we can go on and on, but I have another hearing for the DBM at 3 o'clock. So let me proceed. You mentioned about the PPP projects that was already discussed with the Senate President. May I just know whether you have set aside a portion of your budget for consultancy, or that is already lodged with the PPP Center?
For the PPP projects, ma'am, the PPP Center has a fund that they use together in order to get consultants and transaction advisors. So we use them, and then...
So you don't need a consultancy budget for your PPP projects?
Yes,
Okay.
if we use the PDMF fund.
Correct. And the PPP Center should have that, correct?
Ma'am?
And the PPP Center should have that within their budget?
Yes, I would
Okay,
assume so.
so
But we
it's
do
clear.
have in our budget 50 million pesos, because in some projects we do get our own transaction advisor, because the PPP Center, they allocate that fund to the different agencies.
Because I was wondering, another agency, the DOJ, had 200 million for consultancy. Again, it was not I who noticed it. It was the Senate President during their budget. And he said, what is this? For a PPP project of a building. So now I'm going to ask every agency that does PPPs if they have consultants, because we found out that there's a more than 1 billion consultancy budget in PPP. 1.9, almost 2 billion for consultants for PPP projects in the PPP Center. And then the agencies also put their own consultants. So there's so much budget for consultancy. So the DOJ has 200. We are scrapping that because they should get it from the PP Center. I do not know whether your 50M, I've not seen it in the line item, is lodged in another. Yeah.
Ma'am, every PPP project, but there are many consultants. So the PPP Center provides what is called the business case and transaction advisory consultants. These are the people who help the agency formulate the PPP bid and act as advisors throughout the bid. But then after the bid is awarded, the agency needs what are called independent consultants to help the agency in the implementation and evaluation.
Consultants will come in.
Yes.
Is it not the job of those who are charged with overseeing that specific project the GMs of the airports, for example. Yeah.
Because of the nature, ma'am, like rail, the implementation of PPP projects are highly complex. So an independent consultant would be needed to evaluate the proposals or the engineering proposals of the proponent.
Your 2016 is 50 million only for all your PPP projects. Is that correct?
That's also for PPP and non-PPP.
PPP and non-PPP.
Yes.
So lahat na ng DOTC. Kaya I was wondering, one building in DOJ was 200 million. And kayo, ang dami nyong PPP, 50 million lang. Ganun ba yun? For PPP and non-PPP.
Yes, but I cannot comment on the DOJ.
No, I'm not asking you to comment. I'm just wondering why you have many PPP and non-PPP, 50 million on consultants. But let's look in your budget. You make sure yun lang talaga. Just for the record, let's check all agencies with PPPs kung magkano ang linalagay nila so that there's no duplication with the PPP center. Anyway, I will proceed now. In the briefing of the DPWH and the MVUC, you had more than 6 billion of unutilized fund from the road users tax, the MVUC. And this was supposed to be used for pollution control projects. May I know, Secretary, why there is no utilization or very low utilization of the MVUC funds of 6 billion? And according to Secretary Babes, he's been asking you, it's there, why don't you use it? And we have, we need it for air pollution control devices. Remember, we have the Clean Air Act, and if I'm not mistaken, the DOTC is one of the agencies that must implement the Clean Air Act because the emission testing centers, I believe, are under you, under the LTO. So may I know why the 6 billion pesos or more of the MVUC is not being utilized by the DOTC?
Well, Your Honor, we have not been remiss in trying to utilize the funds. We have room for improvement because the nature of the funds of SBPCF, it only has a lifetime of 1 year. On our side, we have to improve because when we submit our proposal, it is then revalidated by the road board as well. So that takes time when it has to
Sila
be...
palang mabagal. Nung sila'y nag-present sa amin, they showed us 80%, but the percentage goes to the ILG. I think the ILG is spending it, but the very slow or almost no utilization is the fund lodged with you, which is more than 6 billion. Sayang naman. Pollution control.
I'm not saying naman mabagal. I guess they're also
you're
bound
back to the road board.
bound by policy.
So see, here is a classic case of government agencies passing the buck. The money is not used. The Clean Air Act is not being implemented to the hilt. It's not being implemented, period. It's not being implemented. And that law was enacted in my first term in 1999. Smoke belchers still are the kings of the road. Air quality is beyond what is tolerable for human consumption. We see our NMDA and our HPGs in masks. I think that's a crime to be able to not to allow our citizens, I mean, not to be able to breathe clean air. They wear masks. I pity the commuters and the HPGs and the MMDA, etc. Naka-mask lahat. Tayo, maswerte, naka-aircon. Pero ako, ayoko na aircon, so nagbubukas ako. Ang sama. And we have the Clean Air Act, which is 16 years old. And I believe that the DOTC is the agency that must implement among other agencies, the Clean Air Act. And we have the funds for pollution control under the MVUC.
Yes, ma'am. As related to me, in our previous projects of DOTC under the road board, had a lot of COA findings. That's at this point in time, we're finally crafted stricter guidelines to ensure we don't encounter the same. So that should be a challenge of the past.
You're saying the utilization of the road board funds had COA findings, so that deterred you from using it. In short, natakot kayo dahil yung dati ay may findings. So baka
Not necessarily, ma'am. I guess when the road board decides, they take this into consideration. That the scrutiny is heightened, but well, that is incumbent upon all of us. But we're also looking at utilizing these funds for our Jeep team modernization program, because we're really looking, and likewise the jeepney associations are likewise on board to finally put an age limit to jeeps and really shifting from the old diesel into greener technology such as electric jeeps and hybrid jeeps. So this is a fund that we're looking at. We've coordinated with DBP and COA to allow such fund in order to facilitate our transfer from old diesel jeeps to cleaner, greener jeeps, Your Honor.
how can we improve our competitiveness when it comes to transport infrastructure? We're ranked 81 out of 140 economies in the world in the 2015 Global Competitiveness Report of the World Economic Forum. That's not something to crow about, apart, of course, from our airport in the 2014 study being the fourth worst in the world, side by side with Nepal. And so how can we improve that, Secretary?
Well, clearly the direction of government, and probably this has been repeatedly reported to you, Madam Chair, in the 2016 budget, we are now spending 5% of GDP for infrastructure. So that's not just mainly DPWH and DOTC, but other agencies. There's a ramp up on infrastructure. But on transportation itself, clearly the solution to traffic and accessibility for people is to really develop and catch up on mass transit systems. Both DPWH and DOTC are following the DREAM plan, which was presented to us by JICA and approved by NEDA. This is a network of railways, toll roads, and essential infrastructure to address, and this is where the 2.4 billion a day cost of congestion comes from. So a lot of this component under DOTC are already being implemented. The LRT1 project south extension, we are extending LRT2 to Masinag and Antipolo and extending west to the pier area. We have MRT7, which will serve northeastern Metro Manila. That is from the North EDSA, which will go up to Commonwealth, Fairview, and on way to San Jose del Monte. We have the LRT.
Has the MRT7 already been bidded out? Is it ongoing, the construction? No.
It was actually awarded in the previous administration. This is an unsolicited proposal. It went to a Swiss challenge. In this administration, the government was required to issue a performance undertaking. Likewise, and implementing guidelines have been signed. The ball is now in their court. They are doing a financial close. So we are awaiting that, Your Honor. But clearly, it has been awarded. There's a clear.
So it's long delayed. MRT7, no?
Well, but it had, because they failed to do a financial close back then, they were required to go back to NEDA ICC. So they went back to NEDA, they got an approval, so by February of next year, they have to do their financial close. Otherwise, they'll be required to go back to NEDA ICC. So clearly, the ball is in their court, Your Honor.
So you say if it was approved in the last administration, it's been 5 years? More?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
Who's supposed to do it?
The concessionaire is the ULC, Universal Light Rail Corporation. Essentially, it's a San Miguel Corporation, Your Honor.
About the cost of traffic, you mentioned correctly, it's 2.4 billion a day, no? It's the cost of traffic. And the same JICA study says that by 2030, it will be 6 billion per day. And we don't want that to happen. And you're saying that the constructions that will happen, new infrastructure, that is the way to go. But of course, population is also growing, number of cars and vehicles is also growing. What are we doing to improve bus and more mass transit, and the kind of mass transit that is planned out?
Clearly,
Is there not a BRT program, the bus rapid transport system?
yes, Your Honor. In fact, Cebu PRT is much ahead. That has been approved by NEDA. We are now finishing up the detailed engineering design. There is a BRT system likewise in Metro Manila. This would go from Quezon Circle down to Quezon Avenue all the way to Manila City Hall. There's likewise a proposal for an
Is this a proposal or already in the works?
We're still in NEDA board, Your Honor. So once we get NEDA board approval, then we'll bid it out. There's also a EDSA BRT proposal, which is also finishing up the NEDA process. So we are looking at BRT as a technology clearly proven to be working in the Americas and likewise now in Asia, and it's much cheaper, readily rolled out, and could attain capacity similar to rail. And in terms of rail, I've mentioned that. Likewise, the North-South Rail Project, which is basically PNR, modernizing, rehabilitating PNR. There's a south line from Tutuban down to Legazpi, Matnog. That is a PPP, probably the biggest PPP that this government...
That's ongoing now?
We...
Rehabilitated? PNR South Line to Tutuban, Bicol, yes.
This will be a PPP bid, Your Honor. We have yet to publish our concession. We have published it, so we're in the process of procuring the entities who would participate here. There is also a north line.
Just the Tutuban to Bicol. If I take that now, Tutuban to Bicol, ilang oras yon via PNR train?
Currently, there's no service, but...
There's no service.
No,
It's not a matter of rehabilitation alone. It's
It was...
up again. It was operational long time ago. When was
not too long ago. When I was appointed, it was operating, but there was...
you closed it.
Yeah, because there was...
For safety.
For safety, because there was a train that got derailed somewhere in Quezon in a bridge where the foundation of the bridge gave way. So
after it's constructed, how long will it take with the new trains? Tutuban to Bicol.
PPP bid, we see operationalization 2021, Your Honor.
No, I mean, how long will the travel take from Tutuban to Bicol?
Once constructed, Your Honor?
Yes, once constructed.
Probably GM Dila of PNI could answer that. That after the PPP, how long will it take?
Madam Chair, from Tutuban to Legazpi and the extension of the Matnog, the design travel time will be 10 hours.
If you go by car, ganun din. 10 hours, ganun din by car, eh.
Hindi man, from Legazpi, it took about 12 to 14 hours by...
Dahil sa traffic na ngayon.
Yes, ma'am.
Binabayland ko yun, eh.
Yes, ma'am.
10 hours, so 14 hours na ngayon.
That's the ordinary commuter, wherein it makes several stops, but there would be an express line which is straight or limited stops. The design of that would be able to do it around 8 hours.
You know, we really should rehabilitate and promote mass transport, especially trains. You've traveled, I'm sure, in Europe. I mean, I love traveling in trains more than flying, more than riding boats, etc. You show the countryside. It's beautiful, and I wish that you had done this earlier. So this is already approved by the NEDA board. It will be bidded out. So in our lifetime, we will see the PNR trains running again. Right?
Definitely, ma'am. Definitely within our lifetime. They actually, again, I've said it before. The PPP, we should see operationalization.
I want to ride the PNR from Manila. Where can I ride the PNR just to try the train? Saan ang safe? Saan ang maganda?
All stations are safe, ma'am.
Okay. I'm sorry?
All stations should be safe.
I'm not talking about the stations. I'm talking about the trains.
Yes, where you could board, and the rails that connect the stations are likewise safe.
Okay.
It would be, we could invite you. You could, I've done this twice or thrice. You could, we could start at Tutuban, so you would get to see the old Tutuban train station, and we are now servicing up to Alabang. So it would depend on you, ma'am, how far would you want to go.
Tutuban to Alabang lang. I see. Pamprobinsya.
We have started the Naga Legazpi leg, but those are the endpoints, so you have to be there, ma'am.
All I'm saying is that sayang naman, nandyan na yan dati pa. And I'm glad that you're bidding it out, and in our lifetime we will see this by 2021, ang sabi ninyo?
That's
Operational by
operationalization.
2021. Yes. Apart from the South Line, what were the other
Well,
lines that you
in
are?
this NSRP, there's likewise a north line. This is from Tutuban. Phase 1 will be up to Malolos, Bulacan. JICA is helping us here. In fact, it's the biggest ODA of JICA ever to a single country. That will be further extended from Malolos to Clark. BCDA is handling that. And the eventual north line would end up in San Fernando, La Union, and Tuguegarao. So this is equally as long and inclusive, because now we're really looking at farmers and fisher folks having access to markets through rails.
All of these developments for PNR, how long will this all take? In how many years?
The south line to Bulacan is looking at the same time frame, 2021 operationalization.
About the line to Tuguegarao?
The next one after that would be Clark. So you'd add both Clark, if they're able to start it by next year, would be a 2022, 2023. Then if the next administration in 2023 proceeds with the third phase, which was the one in Tuguegarao, we anticipate normal time that would be another 6 to 8 years to plan and to construct.
From 2021 or from today?
Yes, from 2022.
Okay. May I know, Secretary, how much revenue did the government get from raising from the fare hike of MRT? The controversial fare hike.
Madam Chair, we call on GM Buenafet, to the GM of MRT3, to answer.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. The average monthly increase from year to date is same period last year. It's about 25 million, and that's about 15% from last year's revenue.
That's what you generated from the rate hike?
Yes, ma'am. 25 million, about 25 million a month.
Thank you for that information. We just go now to your fund utilization, Mr. Secretary. If my figures are accurate, the DOTC has only averaged an annual utilization rate of 67% from 2011 to 2014. Is that accurate? So there's an annual underspending of 33%. And in the first half of this year, the department has only utilized 1/4 of its budget, 24% for the whole year. I hope this is not correct, but I'm seeing it here. There is a history of underspending and slow utilization of funds. And for this year, in 2015, only 24% of your whole budget has been utilized. May I just know the reason why?
Well, yes, Your Honor, we confirm those numbers. First of all, on the organization itself, I think when this administration started, we are now almost 3 or 4 times the budget that we started from, without any significant increase in personnel. That is clearly something that we continue to address, that the capability to churn out and bid out all these projects should also keep up with the pace the budget is growing.
Did you ask BBM for additional plantilla positions, and did you try to hire more personnel so that you could keep up with a bigger budget and with the projects before you?
Yes, we have requested. Some have been granted. We continue to request. We have likewise tried to hire. Sometimes there are a few takers. Some figure out that it's not enough for them. The competitiveness compared to private sector, especially that we are after engineers and lawyers here, we are not as competitive in the middle ranks compared to private sector.
That's also the reason of other agencies who've underspent or utilized their resources. So I understand where you're coming from. Government may not be a very attractive career for the professionals. So the department is therefore admitting its underutilization, and we're blaming it on lack of personnel.
That is one component. I'm not blaming it. It is something that... It's a reality. Yes, ma'am. Other issues are cases are likewise filed, motions for reconsideration for bidding. TROs, injunctions are issued just on the new trains of MRT 3. Just when we thought we exercised political will to provide a solution to the long lines, the private sector owner files a TRO against that, so that also impedes.
Which is this?
MRT 3.
Which case is this? I'm not familiar.
It's a petition filed by the private owner, essentially MRTC, to prevent us from buying the trains, and that the case is still live. Likewise, site acquisition is likewise a reason for delay, because we need to procure land to extend airports, extend rail, so that takes a process. It's an expropriation process that goes to judicial proceedings. Likewise, the projects themselves of DOTC are very complex. They're not simple bridges and roads, and would require a lot of technical inquiries as well. So we're looking at that. Likewise, the PPPs take up a lot of time. We usually take time to listen to the inputs coming from the private sector, so that also holds us back in our disbursements as well. If you actually look into the disbursement ratio, probably DPWH will express the same, that us as infrastructure companies, we disburse or get billed on a progressive basis. So as things are accomplished, that is when things are disbursed, Your Honor.
We understand. However, sayang naman ang pera. The money is there, it's being allocated by Congress, but because of poor budget utilization, the projects are slow. As I said, for 2015, we have 75% of your budget still unspent. How do you project your unutilized resources will be by end year?
Looking at 85%, Your Honor.
We'll be able to use 85%
Yes, madam.
by December,
Yes, Your Honor.
even if you have only spent 1/4 of it by mid-year?
Yes, Your Honor.
And that's the reason why your budget for 2016 is 21.4% lower, because you still have unobligated amounts in your savings. Is that correct? That's a reason?
It could be, ma'am. We never asked DBM why we were reduced, but again, I understand how DBM makes their decision, so we readily accept the current budget.
Also because you are one of the agencies, based on COA reports, that belong to the top-tier departments with the lowest incurred obligations over the allotments. In short, hindi nga nyo nagagamit. And DOTC had unobligated balances of 9.5 billion and 24 billion respectively, 2013, 2014, 24.1 billion in 2014. Ano yung 24.1 billion with unobligated balances in 2014 was carried over in 2015?
That is carried over, madam, and we eventually obligate that money.
Have you obligated that 24 billion of 2014 this year? Is it part of the already spent 24% of your budget for 2015? In short, yung 24% na ginastos na nyo ng budget nyo ngayong taong ito, nasabi po nyo ay matatapos nyo, mauubos nyo 85% by end year, kasama na ba dyan yung 24 billion na galing sa 2014? Kasama?
Yes, ma'am. It is the continuing appropriation for 2014 is rolled over to 2015, and it is already part of our obligations for 2015.
Actually, most of my questions are about the budget, low budget utilization. I will no longer ask it, Secretary, because you already answered it, but I'm referring even to the regional allocation, the Office of the Secretary allocation. It's all underutilized budget.
Yes, ma'am, but we see it being pushed out, and we're quite confident that the 85% could be attained by the end of the year.
And even you have 71% of authorized, you only managed to fill in 71% of your authorized positions, so you have around 30% of unfilled positions. Is that correct? Yeah. Why? No takers. Nobody wants to work in government. Is that how it is?
Yes, ma'am. At 71, that's the funded portion. So we continue to request to DBM to fund the lacking. Plus the fact there are some really having difficulty competing with the private sector.
What is the public-private partnership transportation infrastructure project You have a proposal, DOTC OSEC, of 3.7 billion. Double, no more than double, triple of your 2015. What is this? Are these the, no, it's not for the airports, is it? Public-private partnership transportation infrastructure project.
Well, Your Honor, this is 3.7 billion. There are basically three components to that, majority of which 2.8 billion pesos is for the integrated transport system project. Basically, this is the terminal malls that will prevent provincial buses from entering the metropolis. This is intermodal because they will be kept in the periphery, and people entering the city could then go rail or city buses. So provincial buses.
So this is a new project.
It is ongoing, Your Honor. We have three of these. There's the ITS South, which has been awarded, ITS Southwest, which has been awarded as a PPP. There's an ITS South, which is an FTI, that is about to be awarded, and an ITS North, which is still in the works. This is 2.8 billion pesos. Basically, the expenditure here is for the ITS South project, buying property from a fellow, from NFA, essentially. We're buying NFA property for now it to be a DOTC property. Second is 700 million is for the regional airports, basically for an independent consultant to guide us for the bid of the 5 regional airport PPP O&M project. And
So
200.
you also have 600 million for consultants for the 5 PPP projects for the regional airports.
This is for the This is for the independent consultant, Your Honor. Basically, aside from what Yusek Lim Kauka has described, the role of this independent consultant, they also serve as referees in a way that if there are claims, he is presumed to be independent and decide which party's claim should prevail. And the remaining balance of 200 million is the PPP strategic fund, basically to address contingent liabilities on our concession agreements, Your Honor.
This will compose the 3.7 billion.
Yes, Your Honor.
And this year, it's only 1.2 billion. It has increased dramatically, at least times 3, compared to this year's budget. What is the fund utilization of the 1.2 billion allocation for 2015? Have you utilized it, considering we're in the last quarter of the year, and you are asking for 3 times more?
Your Honor, the 1.2 billion pesos in 2015 was to procure the FTI property. So all
For land alone, the 1.2 billion.
Yes, Your
And the
Honor.
3.7 billion is a breakdown of what you said on the 600 billion consultants, a 200 million strategic fund, and the rest would be the terminals, the 3 terminals that you mentioned.
No, the 2.8B is buying from NFA property this time.
No, I mean, the 1.2B of this year is for the NFA land.
It's FTI land.
FTI land, that's different. And then of the 3.7, there's the NFA land acquisition.
Yes, ma'am. That is the 2.8 billion.
Of the 3.7 for
Yes, Your Honor.
2016.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. I will no longer belabor the issue of slow and low fund utilization, Mr. Secretary, but let's just allow me to put on record that any time wasted and resources allocated and unspent is wasted. It's sayang.
In fact, it should be for the people. But rest assured, the Office of the Cabinet Secretary of Secretary Almendras also monitors all departments closely. We are called before the President quarterly to look at our scorecards. So that is a constant reminder.
Please.
And likewise, one motivation for us to disburse all of this, our performance bonuses are actually reckoned upon our disbursement and obligation ratio. So we are all in unison to push this all out, because not only for national interest, but even for personal interest, Your Honor.
Thank you for that. Perhaps my last question, I'm not able to ask everything, but that's fine, will be, and you simply have to assist me when I help you in plenary, because the questions I'm asking you are the questions I will be asked. And I hope you don't mind, since it's the first time I'm chairing your budget, I had to ask all these questions. You may think I'm being a bit too hard here. It's just that I have to learn it, because I have, sa ulado ko dapat pagdating ko sa plenary, I'll have to defend your budget. You understand?
We fully understand, Your Honor.
I
We
will be
take a
asked-
longer time in the other house. So this is very short. This is very short.
Very short. We can make it longer if you want, because I have more questions. No, because it's interesting. I'm learning, right? They say I'm not an engineer and not an architect, but those are the things I like to do, and I like to focus on resilient infrastructure. We can go on and on, except that Secretary Abad will wait at 3 o'clock. But I will proceed now to back to MIA and the collection of terminal fees from OFWs. You still do that? You collect fees from OFWs integrated in the plane fares?
No, ma'am. For those
Hindi na po.
the exemption is immediately recognized. However, for those buying their ticket online and abroad, since they could not validate their exemption, they have to pay initially and get refunded before they leave, after they arrive, or anytime by proxy.
How do we do it that there's no need for refund? Because clearly the Migrant Workers Act states that we must exempt all.
Yes, po. Basically accepted po sila. If you're buying a ticket in the Philippines, all you have to do is show your OEC to the
Immediate refund.
Yes, no, ma'am. You don't have to pay. You don't have to pay.
They pay online when they buy a
But
ticket.
when you pay online, yes, you have to pay initially, because well, this one is a technology issue, because the present technology doesn't give us the capability to determine whether the exemption is authentic or not. Like, for example po, pag nag-ano ka sa online sa computer, assuming na magtatanong ka ng are you exempted, most probably others will say kahit na hindi, yes. And then they'll just ask under what category, OFW, athlete, competing abroad, or pilgrims. You can just say, you just click one of them. But there is nothing which can validate such assertion.
So how do we refund them, sir?
We refund them at the airport. This is being handled by Land Bank, and the process will take 1 or 2 minutes lang. Or pagbalik po niya, wala pang expiration yung all you have to do is present the boarding pass and this always exemption. When he gets back to the Philippines, pwede niya i-refund din, or pwede i-certify authorize lang yung anybody, bring in the documents, and ma-refund niya sa MIA office. So there are 3 modes of refunding, ma'am. 3 modes of refunding, yes. 3
Pero
modes.
mabilis po. Yes. Mabilis po.
Mabilis po. Sa airport po yung refunding is 1 minute or 2 minutes.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just to inform you why we undertook this project, because if you observe in all your travels, ma'am, you never pay a terminal fee in other international airports. It is a best practice that we are implementing slowly in the Philippines, because any queue is always a stress to a passenger. So we're doing this now, but we have to recognize the fact that OFW should be exempted in all of this, and I think among all the OFWs...
By law, 1995, the
Yes.
Migrant Workers Act.
Yes, it is by law that we are incorporating in the procedures, but probably even 90% of our travelers appreciate this, because it eradicates a queue in the airport. Even the OFWs themselves are removed from an obligation to line up. It's only those who purchase online and abroad that get to line up. Even if I could share with you, a few times that I traveled I make it a point to interview an OFW who is refunding, and I've never heard of a complaint or a hassle, and the most that they would say it's something that has helped them and it wouldn't take that long. So even the refunding OFWs are not abhorrent to the procedure.
Have I asked the question of our airport being the fourth worst in the world? Yes, I've asked that. And the answer was?
Well, you mentioned it, Madam, but...
how do we get out from that horror list?
Well, first, we're eagerly awaiting if they want to issue again, because I think they've been focusing on Terminal 1 when they discussed this worst airport, and these are... the surveyor is looking at sleeping in airports. So the changes in Terminal 1, anyone who has seen Terminal 1, it has got a remarkable change, and
I hope your bathrooms are clean. I hope there's fast flush. I hope it's recycled water that's being used for flush.
Would gladly invite you, Madam.
I hope you segregate garbage at waste and recycle and compost. I hope there are 2 bins at the minimum, nabubulok at hindi nabubulok. In fact, there should be 3. There should be for tissue waste, there should be for bote, lata, at plastic, and there should be for latak or residual waste. That is RA 9003. I could walk into an airport now and look at a comfort room. If there are no 3 bins or 2 bins at the minimum, you're violating RA 9003. So, I would request MIA, NAIA, all airports, Clark, etc., even regional domestic airports to please, all those under CAAP, let's be clean in our bathrooms. Diyan nakikita ang ugali ng tao, diyan nakikita ang pagkatao ng tao, malinis ba ang kusina at ang banyo. We don't have to be rich, but we should be clean, sanitary, healthy.
We will comply, Madam Chair.
Especially now that we have APEC. But even without APEC, just among ourselves, they know it here in the Senate. I'm something embarrassed with our bathrooms here, and I enter the ladies' room. Dapat malinis ang mga banyo na pwedeng higaan ang sahig. Dapat walang panghi. No, I talk like that because that's how I try to live my life. I enter my bathrooms, even my kitchenette in my office, and even in my own home. I enter my staff bathroom, male, female, and male, them to clean it every day, twice a day. And gusto ko, yung male CR na aking driver ay pwede kong gamitin. Ganun dapat kalinis. And that's how our bathrooms in our airports, which is the show window of the world, yan ang unang tatapakan ng dayuhan at ng OFW, ay ang ating mga banyo. Pag yun ay marumi, or kung walang flush, kung may tumutulo, kung hindi well ventilated or lighted, it does not speak well of us as a people. Tayo malilinis na tao, we take a bath twice a day, pero sa mga banyo, usually marurumi. So, I hope that our bathrooms also implement our laws. As I said, sana at least may 2 bins. Mr. Honrado po, General Honrado.
Madam Chair, I would like to reiterate the invitation of Secretary Abaya for you to visit us.
Without announcement.
With or without us, ma'am. With or without.
Also,
yes.
Our domestic airports as well. Yeah. Just to let you know, sometimes these are little matters, but when I travel, ako mismo nagpupulot po ng mga plastic. Paglabas sa aeroplano, sa koridor na mayroong carpet, may mga tinatapon. Di ba nakakainis ang ugali? Meron naman bins, bakit itatapon? Pero, I hope that we have personnel who always look na palaging may taga-pulot na naka-gloves, syempre, hindi ba? Or talagang taga-walis. Corridor yung daan na paglabas mo sa tube. And I show them. Pag may sasalubong sa akin sa public affairs, and I tell them, bakit tagatapon ng plastic ng candy sa Singapore yan? Kinukulong na yan eh. So I pick it up myself to show them. And they know it here in the Senate. I pick up trash I see in the corridors. Iba dapat ganun. Disiplinado, malinis. And our CR should be clean. Yeah. Di ba po?
Madam Chair, I really support your passion. Kaya nga palaging sinasabi namin, you can be heroes in our own small way. Kahit yung pagpulot po ng papel, that is a heroic act already.
Every trip, it's not very often that I do, paglabas ko sa tube, may nakikita akong dumi. And alam na mga taga-public affairs yan, sabihin sa GM nyo, may pinulot na naman ako. Kundi papel, plastic. Hindi nyo kasalanan. Kasalanan ng mga pasahero na nagtatapon doon. Ano ba tayong mga tao tayo? Talaga bang wala ng pag-asa? Hindi pwede yun eh. So, I don't know how we go to IEC, but if they see our surroundings clean, if they see, paglisto lahat ng mga tao at hindi mga patambay-tambay dyan, pag alam nilang iba yung attitude, and be strict. Perhaps you could have a duty officer for every floor in the airport or every corner, and the duty officer is responsible for the upkeep of that. Just a suggestion.
Sir, yung sa amin po I have to admit it, parang corrective measure na lang After every flight, nililinis yung yung bridgeway. Kasi talagang tama po
yung bridge.
Tama po yung observation nyo. Kasi paglabas ng pasahero, although kung minsan, bago po maglanding aeroplano, may mga stewardess na may dadalang plastic bag, lahat ng mga trash mo nandun Pero talaga pong tama.
I'm not even talking about the bridge. I'm talking about sa loob na po ng airport. Dumi.
Yung sinasabi niya pa, after every, talaga nilinis po.
Anyway, these are small matters, and I'll just end on that small matter. And my point only is, the airports haven't even, Coast Guard pala, at saka LTO. Hindi pa ako tapos pala. Basta we understand each other po, no? And not just Manila International. I'm talking about the other airports as well. I'm talking about the domestic airports. Clean bathrooms. Yan ang ating showcase Kung yan ang hindi natin kayang linisin, what can we do? Wala nang tayong kayang gawin. So I will report you soon. Give me your cell phone, sir. I'll text you directly if I see a dirty bathroom. And if I see trash. Yes.
We'll forward to you, ma'am, all the cell phones of our airport managers.
Oh, Coast Guard. Are you guarding our shores? Are you guarding our waters? Yes. Of course, you are civilian in nature. Are you getting do you have enough boats to police our shores against any form of illegal fishing?
Yes, Madam Chair, we'll have a 10-year certain rescue vessel starting next year, coming from Japan.
Presently, wala po tayo.
We have 11 vessels right now and 33 small craft.
Is the Coast Guard involved at all in the mangrove rehabilitation efforts of the DNR, or you're simply for, do you do such projects? No.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
You do it as part of your CSR or part of your overall mandate?
Part of our other mandate, ma'am.
So are you involved with the NGP of DNR in terms of mangrove reforestation?
It's a separate activity, ma'am. The DNR conduct their own mangrove planting. We do our own mangrove planting, ma'am.
You have a budget allocated for that?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Meron po. Magkano po ang inyong 2016 mangrove rehabilitation project? Anyway, if you don't have it now, I just wanted to ask, but it's there in your budget. I can look at it. Ang pagbabawal po sa mga nagdidinamita. Wala pa rin ang pagdidinamita. And the state of our corals, as you very well know, is just 5% in excellent condition.
Yes, ma'am. We're one of the deputized agencies of BFAR, so we conduct also anti-illegal fishing operations using the vessel of Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, but not Coast Guard personnel.
So BFAR ang may-ari ng mga bangka ninyo?
We are the lead agency.
And you're just one of the... Your personnel are the ones manning the BFAR?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
So ang pondo na sa BFAR at sila nagde-determine anong areas ang dapat bigyan?
Yes, ma'am. Sila po yung nag-deploy ng vessels. They issue sailing orders to our MPF manned by Coast Guard personnel.
Is there enough vigilance between BFAR, Coast Guard, and the other agencies kung LGU, mga bantay dagat?
Meron naman po coordination between BFAR and Coast Guard and LGU.
let's say, in the Verde Island Passage, that is mega diverse, a very high in biodiversity in terms of marine life. Is your presence felt there in those provinces of Batangas, Mindoro, Romblon, etc.?
Yes, we usually conduct routine patrol in those areas using the B-5 vessels, and from time to time we also use our Coast Guard vessels.
Yeah, there's just not enough time. Who is in charge, Secretary, of the emission testing centers that should renew, that should check vehicles for emission testing?
LTO, Madam Chair. ASEC Tan is here for LTO.
It's the LTO, yes.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Why is it that despite the Clean Air Act, despite the fact that we should be strict in the implementation of this law, more than industrial sources, it is mobile sources, meaning vehicles, that is a cause of air pollution in Metro Manila and in other urbanized centers. And every day, ask my staff, gusto ko nga, binibidyo ko, pinipicturean ko ang mga violators sa sakyan, kotse man na pribado, o bus, o jeep, na buga ng buga ng maraming hangin dahil ayoko mag-aircon eh. Hindi ako nag-aircon sa kotse at wala akong aircon sa bahay. Gusto ko nakabukas ang bintana. Pero, nalalanghap ko ang maruming hangin ng mga emitters. If we're implementing the Clean Air Act of 1999, and if the LTO is vigilant in doing that, why do these smoke belchers still ply our roads? They're not doing their job.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Should flag down the smoke belchers. And part, perhaps, of the HPG task is not just to decongest traffic, but also to flag down. But kayo, pag-renew ng mga, what do you call it, certificates, registration, tadaan ng emission testing, because we hear so many stories of babayaran na lang para lang makapasa sa emission testing. We know that eh. Tapos marami mga emission testing centers na fly by night. They just pay, period. Not pay officially, but pay so that they get their clearances.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. If I may, as to roadside testing, since we have limited personnel, it's true we have deputized the HPG to roadside emission testing as well, but mainly it's now the LGUs who have expanded their operations to include emission testing. As to accreditation of emission centers, we have improved greatly in monitoring them. I know it hasn't been felt, but just to give you the number, Your Honor, we have already suspended 116 centers, penalized 294 centers, and revoked 95 centers. This is only been for the past 3 years, as compared to the total centers disciplined previously, which amount to only 10. The problem, Your Honor, is that the issue, Your Honor, is that emission testing is essentially manual. That's why we have proposed an automated or better, what we feel is a better way of doing vehicle inspection, including emission, which is to set up motor vehicle inspection centers nationwide. That is still with Board, Your Honor.
Perhaps you shouldn't read that into the record anymore. Secretary, maybe as a legacy, part of your legacy, apart from faster utilization of your budget, could you kindly be stricter in terms of monitoring emissions? I always complain to the DNR. Again, they say, kasi hindi monitor ang emissions masyado. Ang ating, I don't have the records now, but total particulate is way above what is acceptable. I think for over 90, 120, 30. It's very bad. The air quality in Metro Manila is very bad. Yeah.
Yes, Your Honor. We will continue to enforce this strictly. Our other efforts are definitely putting a age limit to our PUVs now that is strictly enforced. We should not be seeing, and there shouldn't be any bus that is aged more than 15 years old. Before, there's a way to go around such policy. Now there should be no taxi that's more than 13 years old, no UV more than 13 years old, no bus more than 15 years old. We're now in talks with the jeepneys to put a age limit to it. This will help our congestion in our air. Likewise, I think the policy of DNR of now requiring Euro 4 as a standard will be much welcome. I heard a Euro 4 engine emits less pollutants as compared to a CNG engine. So it has been declared. We're not privy to the actual implementation, but taking that step will greatly improve our air quality, Your Honor.
Can't you use your MVUC funds to monitor the air quality and have at any one time mga monitors in Metro Manila so that people will be more aware of the air quality in north, south, east, west Metro Manila? Or is that already done? Are there air quality monitoring centers? I think DNR has that. Para sinabi ba ng DNR yun? They have air quality monitoring centers?
I think the fund itself funded a DOST proposal. So the funds were released to DOST and it is being implemented by DOST. But I also know that DNR put up air quality monitoring stations, but that is DNR, Your Honor.
I have questions, but I cannot. And so I thank you for your patience, Secretary, and I thank all of you for your presence here today. I hope you've been fed lunch. And pending the submission of everything that we asked for, were there submissions?
Yes, ma'am. We will.
You noted, no? The
Yes,
information, including the COA process and the template for the airports, green airport, not just in Clark, but all airports. And I will not repeat myself. There was some information we needed. Then we will terminate or adjourn the hearing on this budget and see you in plenary.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We've noted down all those compliances, and we look forward to
And make
your...
the PNR, get it working. It's so nice of a train system.
Yes, ma'am. We'll invite you one of these days to board a train, Your Honor.
Okay. Ang swerte ng iba, hindi ko na itanong, napagod na. Thank you.